Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. And this is part 5 of our teaching on one Spirit, or one Ruach with Yahuah. And we left off in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 1. And we're going to just reread some verses we already have read, but we're going to try to get through as much of this in the 8th chapter of Romans today. And this is the Apostle Shaul, or Paul. And this is what he says in verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Yahushua HaMashiach, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit, or the Ruach, as the Hebrew would say. For the law, or the Torah of the Spirit of life in Yahushua HaMashiach has made me free from the Torah of sin, or the law of sin and death. For what the Torah could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, Yahuah, sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin condemns sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the Torah might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit, or the Ruach. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit, or the Ruach. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against Yahuah, for it is not subject to the Torah of Yahuah, neither indeed can be. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please Yahuah. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, or in the Ruach. If so be, now here it is, this is very important, listen to this. If so be that the Spirit of Yahuah dwell in you. Wow. It says you're not in the flesh, but you're in the Ruach, or in the Spirit. If so be that the Spirit of Yahuah dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit, or the Ruach of Mashiach, he's none of his. In other words, you have no part with him. You have no relationship with the Father. You have no standing with him. You have no sonship with him. You're not a part of his family unless you have the Spirit of Mashiach. Now, this is so important what we're sharing with you. These verses we read, some of these may not make sense to you. We'll try to go through and explain what he's talking about here. But it's vitally important. These last two verses are so important here. He says in verse 8 that you're so then they that are in the flesh cannot please Yahuah. So you may keep in the natural, you talk about an individual without the Spirit of Mashiach. He could keep all the commandments. He could be obedient to keeping the Torah and all the ordinances, all the feast of Yahuah. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do any of these things. We should keep the commandments of Yahuah. We should honor his feasts. We should do what the scriptures declare. But the point here is this: is that you could do all these things and still not please Yahuah, because it says right here that those that are in the flesh cannot please Yahuah. Why? It's because man needs to be born from above. He needs to be born of the Spirit of Yahuah because of his relationship that he has had inherited in the fall, that he has with Satan as being his father. Because I share with you, even the Mashiach declared to the Yehudim in the 8th chapter of Yahuah, chapter 8, of the Gospel of John, talking to the Yehudim of that day, he said, you are your father, the devil, and the lust of him, or the desires of him, you'll do. See, that's why a man must be born from above in order to enter the kingdom of Yahuah, is because he needs to be a partaker of the divine nature, which is Yahuah's nature. And once that happens, then as it's stated in First Yahuah chapter 3, I believe, says, "Beloved, now are we the sons of Yahuah." Now he's talking about, he's written to those who have received the Mashiach, who have been born of the Spirit of Yahuah, And he's speaking to them and telling them that now they are, not when they get to heaven, not after they die, but now are they the sons of Yahuah. Why? Because we have his Spirit. Now we're going to get into this, but and I've shared with you in the past that redemption is really the process of redemption. We're in the process. We're waiting for the adoption to be complete, the redemption of our bodies. See, our body hasn't been redeemed yet. Your body is still in its fallen state. Your flesh will still want to carry out and do unrighteous things. Why? Because it hasn't been redeemed yet. But on the inside, you have a new man on the inside that has been created, recreated, born from above. And this person that resides on the inside of you is created in righteousness and true holiness. Now, I want to keep your place in the 8th chapter of Romans, and I'm going to read a verse to you. If you have a Bible, then I want you to look this up yourself. And it's over in Ephesians chapter 4, and we'll look at verse 24. Now, the Apostle Shoal, or Paul, is writing here, and he says, and that you put on, or in other words, you allow this person, this new man, this talks about, and that you, let me read the verse first, and that you put on the new man, which after Yahuah is created in righteousness and true holiness, or really we understand that word to mean true set apartness. You're set apart, unique, in the fact that you're different from the rest of the world. You're different from most people because you have the Rauch in you, the Spirit of Yahuah. And Paul says you put on, or you allow, this new man, which is on the inside of you, which is after Yahuah. He's already created in righteousness and true holiness, or true set apartness. Why is that so? It's because you carry his Spirit, or his Ruach, on the inside of you, and that is a new man that Paul is talking about here. That you allow this new man. Notice it says new. You know, if I were to drive up in a brand new car, off the parking lot of a dealership that I had just purchased, and no miles have been driven on it. I mean, and I showed it to you. You could tell by just getting in the car and smelling how the new car smells, and you could tell by looking at it that it was a brand new car. It wasn't a used car. It wasn't something that if you go out and try to buy a car and you say you're looking at a used car, well, a used car doesn't smell like a new car, nor does it even look like. In a lot of cases, it may be in pretty bad shape. So, we know the difference what something is new and something that's used. And the scriptures declare that we're a new creature. In this new man has been already created in righteousness and true set apartness. And this is who you and I have become for those that have received the Spirit or the Ruach of Yahuah. This is who we really are in the realm of the Spirit. So I wanted you to see that verse there. Since we're over in Ephesians, I want to read too in chapter 2. I keep mentioning the fact is about we were partakers of Satan's nature before, and this is actually mentioned in the second chapter, and I want to read a few verses here. Chapter 2, verse 1, Paul says, and you has he quickened, or made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, where in time past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now works in the children of disobedience. See, there's a spirit that operates in the children of disobedience. In other words, those outside the kingdom of Yahuah. There's a spirit that operates in them, and Paul declares that that was you once. You were one time like that. You were without, you were not within the kingdom. You were without the kingdom, and you did not have the spirit that worked in you was that the spirit of disobedience. Verse 3 says, among whom also we all had our conversation, or our manner of life is really a better translation, and our manner of life in times past, in the lust of our flesh and of the mind, and we were, notice this is so important, and we were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. In other words, we were by nature children of wrath. You know, I've shared with those that have listened to my teachings on what it means to be born from above or born again. I mentioned the fact is that in that teaching that you know, for a dog to become a cat, or a cat to become a dog, you know, they would have to be born again. In other words, you know, if you could even try to get a dog to make sounds that might sound like a cat, you might even get a cat to make sounds like a dog, which is very unlikely that you could do either one of those, but let's say you could. You know, it's just like a mankind. A man could be real religious looking. You could put on long robes. You could put on a collar around your neck. You could even call yourself reverend. You could call yourself prophet. You could call yourself pastor. You could call yourself whatever. But that doesn't change who you are unless you're born from above. Unless you're born of the Spirit of Yahuah. You could go to church every day. You could go to synagogue. You could keep the Sabbath. You could do all these things and look and do fasting and do all these kind of things and look on the outward appearance as if everything, and that you're righteous and holy and acceptable before Yahuah. But unless you have a nature change, unless you're born of the Spirit of Yahuah, see, you're still the same person. And that's the same illustration about a dog and a cat. You know, there's only one way that you're ever going to get a cat to become a dog, but the only way you're going to get a cat to become a dog is for that to be born, for them to be born again, or born again. Which in the Hebrew term, like I said, is more from born from above, but still it's born again. You have to be born by the Spirit of Yahuah. Because it's a spiritual birth we're talking about here, not a physical birth here. So, anyway, I'm going to stop it right here, and we'll pick back up on our next session. I want to get back into to reading the rest of these verses in the book of Romans, chapter 8, because there's so much more that we need to say in this, and there's a whole lot to say on this subject. But anyway, thank you for your time today. I enjoyed sharing with you, and always it's a blessing to me to be able to share the scriptures with my friends, my brothers and sisters in Yahuah, and I hope you're being blessed as well. Let me know if you're receiving, that you're being ministered to. It's always encouraging to me to know that there's people out there that are receiving the scriptures, they are being blessed, and it encourages me in what Yahuah has called me to do, and I want to thank you for that. Shalom. Thank you.